I realize that I am harping on about burnout at the moment because I feel like, ironically, the fact that I talk about this all the time and I'm heading like in a one-way direction to autistic burnout is actually phenomenal. So, hi, I'm your neuro fabulous bestie over here, just living her hot mess express life. And I want to make it abundantly clear before we get into today's topic. I have my TEDx coming up next week. And thank God today is a public holiday in New Zealand because I really need to memorize this fucking speech. I think the big thing for me here is that I feel like TEDx is a massive thing, and I know that millions of people end up watching TEDx's, and I feel like if I fuck it up, like the impact is wider than if I fuck it up, then what's the point, right? And I think because I advocate so much for people at work with neurodiverse needs and kind of getting, the information out there around what neuroinclusivity could look like in the workplace and how it's associated with safety, psychological safety, and all of these really, really important things, I have gotten like overwhelmed by how important this is to me and how important it is to other people that see themselves in this content. So it's a lot. I'm going to link the TEDx below because you can get tickets to watch it online. You don't have to be there in person. It is in New Zealand, so New Zealand times. So, like, it's literally all I think about all day, every day. I go to bed and I think about it. I wake up and I think about it. And then like, if I'm resting, it's all I think about. And when I'm trying to memorize stuff, I can't memorize it because my frontal lobe is kind of shutting down. It's going into like flight, fight, or fawn, and I'm fawning, and it's like, and I know that it's happening because I can feel it happening. Like everything is hard. Like everything is hard. Like everything. Like I woke up in the middle of the night because like there was a whooshing noise in the house, and I was like, okay, great. This is fun now. This is great. Not going to sleep because whooshing noise. And I realize the irony of this. Like I literally realize the irony, and I am so frustrated and so annoyed about the fact that I can't control my own like being in my own mind. And it's really, I don't know, I'm feeling grim about it. So let's get into today's topic. Thank you for coming to my TEDx talk. If you honestly, I just hot mess. Now, I realize the first part and the second part are days away from each other because today I'm testing out red lipstick for my debut on the red circle of TEDx. It's literally all I can think about. So it is why this video is now days late, because oops, my bad. I have been burnt out. I have been memorizing the speech. Like, I honestly, girl, honestly. Okay, so let's actually get into the point that we're here today. And it's kind of a lead on from last week. And if you want to know about that video, go back to it. So, hi, kia ora. I am your neurofabulous friend, late diagnosed ADHD, AuDHD. Oh my God, I can't even like remember what I am. Like, Jesus Christ. And today I'm here to talk about the kind of burnout where resting honestly makes you feel guilty. This week I took some time out to rest because I felt like I was burning my own brain out, like I was glitching a little bit. And it just made me feel guilty. So there's that. Productivity tools made it worse. And it just felt like it was racing and shutting down at the same time. And is fucking awful. So if you've ever been there and thought, God, I'm exhausted, but I can't stop, or I'm doing everything right and still crashing out, this video is for you. Today I'm going to explain 3 things very clearly and calmly. Firstly, autistic burnout, what it actually is. We've spoken about it before, but it's not depression. Second, ADHD burnout, what that actually looks like and why executive function fatigue is like a real thing. And third, what AuDHD burnout is and why it actually hits a little harder and what actually helps when things start to spiral. We're also going to talk a little bit about time blocking. Not as a productivity hack today, like not a productivity planning system today, but more as a nervous system support tool when burnout gets too intense and out of hand. And you should listen to me because because this is not just a lived experience. I work professionally in leadership and risk and systems design. I studied law and psychosocial risk, blah, and I've spent years trying to translate things that actually work, like for myself, which I didn't realize at the time was neurodivergent. So I'm trying to make things work for other neurodivergent people too. So before we get into it, quick note, if you want to dig deeper around this, around masking, burnout, leadership, all with a neurodivergent brain or with neurodivergent team, my book Unmasking Leadership, it's linked below. So it's right at the intersection of lived experience and evidence. Perfect. Now let's get into the important stuff today. Lols. Let's start with autistic burnout, okay? Because I've had so many comments around that's different thing. Yes, they're absolutely different things. And up until 2013, autism and ADHD were actively discouraged from being diagnosed in the same person. So, like, please, can we not? I realize that it is a comorbidity, not its own condition, but you know what? When you have it, that is what it is. It's AuDHD. So back that track up. Use. Autistic burnout is now recognized in research as a chronic state of exhaustion and loss of functioning caused by long-term stress and unmet support needs. This is not workplace burnout. It is not depression. You can't just fix it by trying harder. So there's quite a lot of research out there that shows autistic burnout is driven by prolonged mismatch between capacity and demands, especially when someone is masking for like long periods of time, which I've been doing recently. Common features include extreme mental and physical exhaustion, loss of skills or regression. I've been unable to think of words. I can't memorize stuff. It's really stressful. Reduced tolerance for sensory input. If I hear my partner chew on his fingers, I may stab him. I may stab him in the eye. No, I would never. He's too wonderful. But I have considered it. It flashes across my eye. Increased shutdowns or meltdowns. I've been feeling that a lot this week. And executive functioning collapse. One of the most important findings, though, is this. Things that help depression, like pushing yourself to be more active, getting outside, seeing the sky, actually sometimes make autistic burnout worse. Lols. Recovery actually requires less demand, not more motivation. So from a professional lens, I see this constantly. High performing autistic adults who look fine on paper, they're essentially running on empty because their environment never lets them recover. So I want that really to sink in for people. And if this is already sounding uncomfortably familiar, please hit the subscribe button because you might be watching this while having a burnout. Please do share. You don't have to share in the comments if you're having a burnout, but we're here to share the journey. Now, let's talk about ADHD burnout. ADHD burnout is not formally diagnosed, but research constantly shows adults with ADHD experience higher rates of stress, occupational burnout, and emotional exhaustion. This is huge. And a key driver is executive function fatigue. Think about how much effort it takes to start tasks, to stay focused, regulate emotions, manage time, remember everything. Studies show that burnout in ADHD is strongly linked to time blindness, planning fatigue, emotional dysregulation, and constant self-monitoring. So, in simple terms, ADHD burnout happens when your brain has been compensating, non-stop. And you might see a lot of task paralysis, loss of motivation, increased irritability, shame spirals. Oh my God, I can't. And I cannot do anything days. I literally cannot right now. This is not because you stopped caring or living. It's because your regulation system is completely overloaded. And I also want to point out that I recently read some research around neural pruning, and it is absolutely bonkers. And I think I need to do an episode on the neural pruning because essentially there's more brain connections for people with ADHD and autism than there are for neurotypical people. So of course we're flooded with information and overload. Please, the science shows this. So professionally, I see ADHD burnout as mislabeled as often it is mislabeled as poor performance, and in reality it is the system failing the person, not a personal failure. So onto AuDHD burnout. This is where things get really intense, which is why I really struggled this week, because I am just like on a one-way train ticket decline into completely burning out. There is limited direct research on AuDHD burnout specifically, but studies on dual diagnosis show higher impairment, higher stress, and poorer recovery outcomes compared to autism and ADHD alone. Tracks. Why? Because you're managing both. So you're managing the sensory and social overload from autism, and you've got the executive and emotional overload from ADHD, often at the same time. Lols. So you might really need the structure right now, but you just want to push it away. Or you need the novelty or like quick thinking, but burn out the minute something's too noisy, something's overstimulating. Mask socially, compensate cognitively, and it can show up as faster burnout cycles, deeper exhaustion, more severe shutdowns, longer recovery times. And from lived experience, this is a wild ride. I am so hyper aware of sound right now that, like, it yesterday I probably spent my entire day in noise cancelling headphones just to get through the day. Excluding anything else. It was just to survive the day. Bonkers. So, right. Every coping strategy currently is switched on. So let me talk you through what I do when I'm in this state of disrepair. And I want to talk about time blocking for a second, because it's not like hustle culture time blocking, and it's not color coded perfection. It's none of that crap. It's none of that. Just park that thinking for a second. It's burnout informed, it's neuroaffirming time blocking, because in my mind, so it might not work for you, just let's be clear, but in my mind, I need to see what is happening over this week, because I know this week is really intense. Like, I know it, so I've got to make sure that I see it with my eyes. So how this helps me is because it helps me reduce the decision fatigue. It makes time really visible. It creates kind of containment around the tasks. It also helps me kind of support transitions where I'm like, okay, I know I have got to be out of bed by 7 a.m. Or I know someone is relying on me at 8 a.m. So it really helps me see where those transition phases are. So it kind of helps me protect rest time as well, because I've been feeling incredibly guilty about taking rest time. I just feel like I don't deserve it because I feel so burnt out. Like, please, it's a spiral. So when burnout is really this intense, I genuinely can't self-regulate. Like, I got to outsource. So time blocking becomes kind of a regulation scaffold. I kind of use it around me to kind of prop it up. So what I do to create kind of like a burnout safe time blocking, because I've still got to do my job, right? Like I've got to perform at my job. Let's be clear. So what I do is I do short blocks of time, not long ones. So I try to do maximum 45 minutes, and I try and keep everything to like a 45-minute schedule with like a 15-minute kind of transition period. I what I do go through and do is I schedule rest first because I feel so guilty about it. I know that if I put other stuff in, I'm not going to put it in. I know me. I'm so naughty. I also build in sensory recovery, so noise cancelling headphones, a bit of Animal Crossing. That's my sensory downtime. And I usually put in something like white noisy in the back, like 90 Day Fiance or something like brain squishy. I also buffer time in everywhere because it's not that I'm running late to things, or it's not that I'm running early to things. It's just that I can't regulate the transition well at the moment. So like getting out of the car, I need to put in a 5-minute break between getting in and getting out of the car so that I know that I'm actually going to exit the vehicle, because one of my favorite places to disassociate is inside the garage in the car. And I just sit there and I stare at space. Anyway, then the other thing I do is I kind of give myself permission to move some of those kind of blocks around. So professionally, I describe this as kind of like risk mitigation for my nervous system because, I've got to make it feel better. Yeah. But I just want to be very clear. You're not optimizing your output. When you are going through these times that are really intense, which is what I have coming up. So as I mentioned earlier, I've got the TEDx coming up and I'm really, really overwhelmed by it. Like every time I think about it, I think I haven't learned enough, and I haven't, like, let's just, so it's really important to me to make sure that we're kind of meeting all those or ticking all those boxes. So if this video has helped you feel less alone today, please like and subscribe. This channel literally only exists because so many AuDHD adults are burning out, like in the background, and I'm here to talk about it. I also want to talk about my book, Unmasking Leadership. It's linked below if you want to dig into that. I spent a lot of time putting a lot of thought into it around burnout, especially work, identity, sustainability. But please remember this: burnout is not, I'm pretty much saying this to myself, burnout is not a personal failure. It's about information. It's information input, and sometimes the information isn't processed properly. So yes, hi, I'm your neurofabulous friend, late diagnosed AuDHD, and I will see you in the next video.